What you're about to hear will change the way you look at global trade forever. China just delivered a gut punch to the United States with one simple, brutal statement. Take your beef and go home. 150,000 tons of American beef, gone overnight, with no warning, no negotiation, just rejection. It's a loss that echoes far beyond the freezer sections. But it's not just about meat. It's about leverage. It's about power. It's about 520 million of American livelihoods thrown into chaos. This isn't just a trade dispute. This is a strategic blow aimed at the heart of U.S. economic interests. And while Washington scrambles to pick up the pieces, there's one player who didn't miss their chance. Moscow, sliding into the void without so much as a knock on the door. But why did China turn its back on the U.S. so abruptly? And why is Russia, of all countries, the one to benefit the most? The answer is more complex and more dangerous than you might think. According to Reuters, China's rejection of U.S. beef followed a covert series of inspections at key ports in Guangdong and Shanghai, just 2 days after the United States imposed harsh tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles. Officially, China blamed health standards for the ban. But analysts at the Peterson Institute and Rabobank believe it's something far more strategic: retaliation. You don't throw away $500 million in beef over a clerical error, says Chad Bound, senior fellow at the Peterson Institute. In 2024, U.S. beef exports to China reached $1.28 billion, making it one of the most profitable and fastest-growing trade lines for American agriculture. Cutting that off without any prior warning or diplomatic channels is no mere coincidence. This is calculated, this is targeted, and it hurts. But why now? Why American agriculture? It's simple, because this is personal. The fallout from China's decision wasn't just financial, it was deeply human. Over $520 million in orders have been canceled or diverted in the last 2 weeks, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Ranchers in Texas, Kansas, and Nebraska, who produce over 70% of the U.S. beef exported to China, are left with full inventories and no buyers. Clayton Rhee, a Nebraska cattle producer, is now staring down a $14 million contract in limbo. "We prepared shipments for Q2 based on projections from January," he said in an interview with the Wall Street Journal. "Now, we're selling at a loss to domestic buyers who won't even touch those volumes." The USDA reported that wholesale beef prices dropped 7.3% between March 5th and March 18th, a direct result of the oversupply caused by China's rejection. "China was our growth frontier," said Ethan Lane, president of the American Cattlemen's Association. "Losing them throws years of investment off course." But it's not just ranchers who are feeling the blow. Downstream industries, feed suppliers, truckers, cold chain logistics are facing layoffs. The ripple effect is devastating, and it's only the beginning. But here's where it gets even more chilling. This wasn't just a sudden, arbitrary action. This was a political strike. The roots of this escalation stretch back to February 2025, when President Trump, in his second term, imposed 25% tariffs on $38 billion worth of Chinese electric vehicles, batteries, and rare earth components. Citing national security concerns and unfair competition, Trump took aim at China's technological ambitions. Beijing wasted no time retaliating. Within 72 hours, China launched a covert disruption of U.S. beef imports. They framed it as a quality control issue, but the numbers don't lie. Rejection rates of U.S. meat products spiked 430% compared to January. This wasn't random enforcement, it was a calculated campaign. A spokesperson for China's Ministry of Commerce stated, "Imports must meet our safety standards, regardless of origin." But in the background, state media published op-eds linking agricultural dependence to geopolitical vulnerability, positioning American agriculture as a critical weakness. Wendy Cutler, vice president at the Asia Society Policy Institute, put it bluntly: "Trump hits their tech, they hit his voter base." With farm states playing a crucial role in Trump's re-election bid, China's move was as strategic as it was personal. They weren't just retaliating, they were sending a message to both Washington and American farmers. If you hit us, we'll hit where it hurts the most. But as the U.S. bleeds, Russia is swooping in, taking full advantage of the vacuum China's created. Russia's beef exports to China surged by 312% in the first quarter of 2025, reaching 38,000 tons, more than 5 times the amount in the same quarter in 2022, according to China's General Administration of Customs. How did they move so quickly to fill the gap left by the U.S.? In 2023, Russia and China signed a bilateral agreement to establish a joint veterinary certification system, paving the way for exports from 40 Russian processing plants previously banned from the Chinese market. In November 2024, a rail corridor linking Russia's Volgograd region to Xinjiang opened under China's Belt and Road Initiative, slashing transport times by 2/3. This is no accident, says Alexei Kurdakov, Russia's Deputy Minister of Agriculture. This is a result of strategic alignment and infrastructure diplomacy. But it's more than just logistics. Russia is using the yuan ruble payment system to sidestep the risks of dollar transactions, a key sticking point in US-China trade. Moscow isn't just filling a gap, they're capitalizing on a strategic opportunity. The truth is, Russia didn't just slip into China's agricultural market, they were invited. They waltzed through a door left wide open by American tariffs and trade policies. Now the question isn't just how fast Russia is moving, it's whether they can keep up with China's massive, insatiable appetite for beef. Can Russia supply the quantity and quality that China demands? And more importantly, will the US be able to reclaim its place at the table before Russia solidifies its position? This isn't just about beef. It's about global power, economic dominance, and the shifting balance of geopolitical forces. The game has changed, and the stakes have never been higher. In 2024, China consumed an eye-popping 10.6 million tons of beef, according to the OECD FAO Agricultural Outlook. Nearly 25% of that came from imports, with the United States once dominating this trade. Last year, however, the US filled a mere 285,000 tons, while Russia, despite its rapid expansion, accounted for barely 15% of that volume. So how is Russia planning to close the gap? And what does this mean for the future of global food trade? In early 2025, the Russian government made an aggressive move, announcing a staggering $1.1 billion subsidy to double its meat production by 2027, with a specific focus on export-oriented beef farms. To achieve this, 3 massive new feedlots are being constructed in Voron and Kursk, each capable of raising over 100,000 cattle annually. Russia, with its vast swaths of arable land, cheap labor, and newly improved logistics, is poised for a leap forward. But it's more than just a business strategy, it's a geopolitical maneuver. Olga Ova, a trade economist at Moscow State University, notes that while Russia's logistical advantages are undeniable, the world remains wary of its safety standards and the reliability of its cold chain infrastructure. And yet, China appears to be willing to overlook these risks, likely for the sake of deeper, more strategic geopolitical ties. But the burning question remains, why is China pivoting so radically toward Russia? Argentina, once China's second-largest beef supplier, accounted for 21% of China's beef imports in 2021. But in late 2024, Argentina's political and economic instability hit a tipping point. Javier Milei's deregulation agenda led to runaway inflation, a spiraling peso, delayed export permits, and halted contracts. The once reliable supplier was now in turmoil, making it an unpredictable and volatile option for China. Meanwhile, Australia, long a trusted partner, has struggled to regain Beijing's trust after the 2020 barley and wine dispute. While China lifted some bans on Australian beef in late 2023, the relationship remained fraught. In January 2025, 3 major Australian shipments were rejected for exceeding microbial residue limits, rekindling Beijing's doubts. Trust has not been fully restored, says Dr. Vivian Wang, a food safety policy analyst at the University of Sydney. China now places greater value on suppliers who offer not only volume, but political alignment and sanitary compliance. Enter Russia, once an unlikely contender, now stepping up as China's beef supplier of the future. By the first quarter of 2025, China's imports of Russian beef soared to 41,000 tons, up dramatically from just 9,800 tons during the same period in 2023, according to the General Administration of Customs. What's driving this? Price is part of the story. Russian beef is 12% cheaper than Australian beef. But there's more. The real game changer is Russia's alignment with China's payment system. Since December 2024, 89% of Russian beef exports to China have been transacted in yuan or rubles, bypassing the US dollar entirely. Beijing values predictability over perfection, says Maxim Sokolov, CEO of Russia's agro-export group TAS. This strategic alignment is not just a win for Russia. It's a decisive pivot in the broader geopolitical landscape. Russia's new agricultural rail corridor, operational since November 2024, has slashed shipping times to China from 28 days by sea to just 11 days by rail, drastically improving efficiency and predictability. This shift isn't simply about beef, it's a dramatic reimagining of global trade dynamics, cloaked in the veneer of agricultural exchange. And the consequences could reshape the global food market. On March 7, 2025, China escalated tensions with the US, imposing new tariffs on 711 US agricultural products, including sorghum, almonds, pork, and dairy. The tariffs, totaling $11.6 billion in annual trade, came just days after the U.S. reinstated tariffs on $35 billion worth of Chinese tech goods. This is not just economic retaliation, it's a strategic maneuver. USDA chief economist Seth Meyer warned that if these retaliatory measures persist, U.S. soybean exports, valued at $14 billion in 2024, could drop by 22% in 2025. This is no longer a simple tit-for-tat, says Alicia Garcia Herrera, chief Asia-Pacific economist at Natixis. It's a long-term decoupling. These tariffs represent far more than just economic punishment. They are an attempt to fracture the U.S.-China relationship, strategically targeting red state exports to put political pressure on rural America, while avoiding critical inputs like lithium or semiconductors. It's a calculated move, designed to disrupt the U.S.'s agricultural dominance, and the stakes are higher than they appear. The U.S.'s share of China's beef market, once a major driver of agricultural exports, has plummeted. In 2022, the U.S. held 12.6% of China's beef imports, generating $1.2 billion in sales. But by the first quarter of 2025, that share had dropped below 6%, according to USDA data. Without a diplomatic thaw or a radical shift in strategy, analysts warn that this decline is not just temporary, it's structural. Once a supply chain is rerouted through another country, with new logistics, payment systems, and certification in place, it becomes incredibly difficult to reverse, says Deborah Elms, executive director of the Asian Trade Center. The U.S. could soon find itself locked out of Asia's fastest-growing protein market, as Russia and Kazakhstan step in to fill the void. At the same time, China's domestic beef production is booming, up 5.3% in 2024, thanks to heavy state-backed investments in regions like Inner Mongolia and Sichuan. Add to that Russia's burgeoning role as a supplier, and the U.S. faces a double threat: political barriers and rising competition from other countries. This isn't just about losing a market. It's about losing relevance in the future of global food trade. The pressure on U.S. exporters is mounting, and the consequences of inaction are growing more severe by the day. If the U.S. doubles down on tariffs, as it plans to do by late March 2025, it risks further alienating China, pushing Beijing to lock in multi-decade beef contracts with Russia, Kazakhstan, and other nations, cementing a new world order. China is also signing yuan-based trade agreements, making U.S. dollar-based transactions and U.S. beef less attractive by design. The stakes could not be higher. If current trends persist, the U.S. risks losing permanent access to China's vast and lucrative protein market, a loss that could reshape the global agricultural landscape for generations to come. The trade war, once about leveraging economic influence, may soon become a story of self-inflicted isolation. The world is watching and the geopolitical chessboard is shifting. The U.S. must decide. Will it escalate further, or is it already too late to recover?